If it ever starts, there we go. We are live.
You're live, not me.
No intro necessary. Welcome, boys and girls. Give folks time to get here. Talking to the great John Dillard this morning. John, what's got you busy today? What are you working on?
Sledheads, working on a comic book about a bunch of snowmobile racers, but in the style of like a speed racer where they attempt to sabotage and destroy one another while winning the race.
I just did a rant about this, 2 days ago. Speed racers spoiled racing for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, racing is just terrible.
Yeah, I wanted to see people throwing Molotov cocktails at each other, running each other off the road, off the cliff. You never saw that shit. It was just people.
Well, you get these little glimpses, right, into movies like Talladega Nights, which I happen to love. But they're just terrible, awful movies because racing is just going faster than somebody else. It's not an actual death race. You know what I mean? But then you get these little tiny pieces in the movie where people are actually attacking one another. Then it gets entertaining because it has a little bit of a little flavor, a little taste, just on the tip of your tongue of Speed Racer.
Yeah, but like I said, Speed Racer. You see that as a little toddler. You grow up watching it, and then you see your first real races, and it's like, where the fuck is the jack where the car jumps and the robot flying out with the
Where's the jump jacks?
Yeah, where are the jump jacks?
Where the saw blades that come out to clear the trees?
That's exactly. And what the fuck kind of saws are those that they can do that? Just saying.
Cartoon saws.
Cartoon logic. So you're working on this. Whose project is it?
This is for Glacier Mountain. Dario Hernandez.
Dario likes his cold and underwater stuff.
Yeah.
I get the sense from talking to Dario and seeing the stuff you're doing for him that Dario really needs to visit the Caribbean sometime.
Well, Dario likes to focus on things that happen on the extremes, right? The extremes of weather. Like there's another book I'm working on called Bucket List, where it's the extreme desert. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. And you have some firsthand knowledge with deserts.
I do. Not right now, though. Right now I'm in the middle of a flood. I thought the rain. I was like, that was a very rainy winter. Amazing. I'll never forget that. Went to bed. Woke up. It's raining again, dude.
The whole time I was stationed out there, it was 2 years in San Diego. And I think it rained once the whole time I was there. Now, I could be wrong, but that's all I remember. And I remember thinking it was odd that it was raining because it never freaking rained. There was never even any clouds that I remember.
Lots of fog.
Yes.
A lot of rain.
Foggy mornings, always. And cold as shit at night. Out there in August in the barracks. And they're running the heat at night because it's so cold.
So are you coming to my house for the party?
Yeah, probably not. When's the party? What is the party? What's going on?
Open invite to all the CG.
Oh, all right.
It's going to be a pool party / barbecue. I'm going to be making some spare ribs on the queue, a lot of burgers, a lot of bratwurst. All you can drink. Beer, of course. I'm not going to be providing alcohol. I'm not trying to have people get shoveled off in the wheelbarrow.
Right.
Only
now,
beer.
See, that is similar. I'm doing a closeout stream when I close out Pariah. And I'm going to do it a live party here also. So if anyone's able to come, they can come. We're doing the same thing. Bring your own beer. We're going to burn some burgers and some dogs and listen to some music and lie to each other and, have a good time.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
I'm having my good buddy Rick Piper of Cross Comics. He's coming all the way from Hamilton, Canada.
Wow.
To my house.
Wow. That's a long ass way. Just for a hangout. Now, does that mean
he's going to be staying with me for a few days.
Does he get to be the guest of honor?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Right on.
It'll be the first time I'm meeting him in 4 or 5 years.
Very cool. Yep. Meetups are cool.
And it's a pool party, so bring your trunks.
I don't have a pool. I don't have much of a yard left after the tornado came through here like the Wizard of Oz, but
What are you talking about? They basically made a pool for you. They ripped up a hole in the ground with your tree.
They made
all you got to do is fill it with cement.
They made a river from the backyard to the front. It's a little valley, and I'm literally at the bottom of the valley, and all the trees are gone, so the water's just flowing right through the yard. And I got to make something out of that mess at some point. Dillard, let me ask you a question.
All right.
Who are
Are you wearing slippers?
No, I had on my Hey Dudes. My Hey Dudes.
I don't know what that is.
They're really comfy shoes that you just throw on and run out the door with them. Got them for Christmas.
Never like winos.
Yeah, sure. We'll go for that. No idea what that is.
Slip-on shoes.
Yeah, they're just slip on here.
For drunks.
These.
Yeah, winos.
Slide them on and go.
We call them winos around here in California.
Okay. I had never heard of them. And the wife said, "You want something for Christmas?" I'm like, I just always say yes when she asks questions like that. Yeah, sure. Whatever.
You say, no, I want a new gun. That's what I want for Christmas.
Well, I never really want anything. Art supplies. Always use art supplies.
I buy those throughout the year. Give me a gun.
I do too, but I need a break from buying them sometime. This year I got a set of Copics, the whole gray pack. It's like, it's like winning the lottery.
The manga pack.
Yeah, that's like winning the lottery when you get all those. Who are the comic book artists that do it for you? Who are the good ones to you?
There's only one. Mark Teixeira.
Good choice, Mark Teixeira. I had forgotten all about him.
You would.
Of course I would. I'm old. I forget all the things. What is
Mark
it about?
Teixeira has no rules. You can tell this guy has a strong command, perspective, anatomy, planes. And he breaks every single rule on every panel because he always follows the rule of cool.
You got to know the rules to break the rules.
Mm-hmm.
True story.
Everything he does is just how I see it in my head. When somebody were to say, "Hey, can you draw a picture of a guy coming into a room and he's surprised?" I'm like, when I close my eyes, right, I'll go, let me think about that for a second.
How would Mark?
Then I do a little sketch out. Then I go online and I see how Teixeira did it better.
I remember the classic for me, of course, was George Perez, but there's a contemporary artist working now. He's about my age. Steve Epting started in the 90s. And in my opinion, he's the best of the current crop out there working in the mainstream.
Uh-huh.
But I really like, I got to give him props. I like Aaron Lopresti too. He's just got enough of that John Byrne, George Perez feel to his work that it just feels, it's very comfortable for me to check that work out.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to ask you, because I get asked this shit all the time, both at my art school and sometimes on some of the panels I pop up on. I can teach art, the basics, but you have a much better grasp on the sequential stuff than I do. I'm just now getting back into it. You've been slogging away for a minute at this. So what do you think the most important thing? You see a kid, like we got the little kid Tadpole, he's like 15 or 16 years old, and he's all heavy-handed and blocky figures. And what do you think is the best direction you could give a guy like that?
Think about what you're doing before you do it and while you're doing it. And this is going to be controversial. After you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start with your story. And I don't mean you have to start with a script.
Right.
I mean, you have to start with, in your head, the story you want to tell. All right. So I was doing a layout yesterday for a book I'm doing called The Buckler Canadian Tussle.
Mm-hmm.
Real cartoony, real boisterous, animated, right? Real loose with the style. But I was sitting there and I was drawing for a good half an hour trying to figure out what's the best jumping pose, sideways jumping pose. The guy's going to run, launch himself up, and through a second story window. Break in. And I'm sitting there stuck in the weeds trying to figure out how I'm going to picture this sideways view of the jump. And then as I was doing that, and I was thinking about it, taking my little breaks, having a cigarette, thinking about cool scenes that I've seen before of jumping, what kind of perspective and angle do I want to show this thing at, right? All of a sudden, the entire page hit me, right? Because I was sitting there and I was thinking about it and I was chewing on it. And I wasn't just, okay, let me just get this done and make a decision real fast. Because I was thinking about the story, the beats, the running, the jumping, the crashing through, the landing, the surprise as he enters the room and look at all these horrors around as he's jumping into a whorehouse, right? When I show that in my head, when I'm thinking about the story, then the pieces start to fall apart and then some pieces start to come together. And I was like, oh, okay, if I do it like this, and I'll start real fast. And then I got to, be careful because I won't be able to understand my own secondhand gibberish.
Right.
But I was sketching real fast the whole page and then start to refine it. And no, take that out, throw that out. No, that's not good. No, get rid of that. And once you start getting rid of all the garbage you don't need, what you're left with on the page looks like chicken scratch, but you're like, this is it.
Yeah, that's the chicken scratch you can make something out of. Yeah.
This is the sequence that this tells the story best. Then after you do that, you're not done, right? You have to go in and start to worry about the facial expressions, the gestures for the bodies that are not, in the foreground, things that are happening in the background, people that are reacting to your protagonist, right? When you have a protagonist, like my protagonist, he is the person that makes things happen. Everybody else in the book reacts to what he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. He's not a reactionary kind of person. He's the head honcho. He's the big chief.
He's the action. Not the
he's
reaction.
the action. He brings the story. He's not part of a story. He is the story. So everybody is in turn, because of that, reacting to whatever he's doing. The people that he's running away from are reacting to him. Wait, I thought we were gonna have a plan, right? And he's no. The windows are reacting to his body that's flying through them.
So visualization is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Speaking of, what's up, Mr. Piper?
What up, Rick?
What's up, Brandon? Good to see you. So visualization is step one. And one of the things I told the kid is don't start off drawing so dark. You're going to have to erase a lot because you've got to kind of sculpt an image as you go. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest mistakes I see out of folks in any art is this stiffness of motion and getting married to bad ideas too soon. Mm-hmm. 1,000 bad ideas you'll end up with a good idea, but like you said, you got to be willing to throw out the garbage.
If you want to take it back to Art 101, this is the difference between Frazetta and somebody like Boris Vallejo. Mm-hmm. What it seems to me is that you need to do one thing. If you're going to be doing sequentials, mm-hmm. you need to spend the majority of your time working on drawing from life. And not just drawing from life. I'm talking about drawing people that are in motion.
Yes.
Go to the park, go to the cinema, go to wherever people are milling about and draw a person. Don't draw a person that's sitting down. Draw a person that's walking by. And mm-hmm. you draw them in the act of doing something. And you do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because the thing is, when you get a gesture drawing down, capture somebody who's just pulling their phone out of their pocket, or who actually has their phone in their ear, or somebody who's talking to somebody in the ticket booth, or somebody who's ordering something or waiting in line or whatever. Mm-hmm. Real fast. Get that drawing, get that sketch done in 7-10 seconds. As fast as you can. Then take that gesture drawing, the gesture that you really want to have, the one that you want to show, and then you build your anatomy
Start
on top of
refining
that.
it.
You know anatomy. You've been doing art for a long time. You know the hip bone's connected to the leg bone. You know the stuff. So you just add it in later. You don't need it. All you need is the line of action in your drawing.
Yeah, and I would say
get your figure done.
If I'm hearing you right, it's not don't draw someone sitting down. Don't have someone pose. Sit somewhere and draw candid. People sitting having a conversation with people walking behind them and get the whole scene, because you got to learn how also to get those inanimate things in there with them. The table that they're sitting at, the chair that they're in, the door that's behind them. One of the things I frequently do is life drawing. I'll go sit at the coffee house and there's like 5 tables outside and it's on a busy street. So if I'm facing the street, I'm going to draw these people walking, but I'm also, and maybe someone's in the foreground sitting at a table. But you got to draw the median with the trees in it and the cars going by and the building in the background, and do it fast and loose. You got time to tighten that shit up at your leisure. But draw from life always. And
because the differentiation I was making between Frazetta and Vallejo, right, is like you can see it almost like Frazetta has the image in his head. He can see it, right? Mm-hmm. And he'll do the gesture. This is what I want. I want him doing this. I want him doing this. And then he'll build from that, from the gesture. So it has life. It has, soul, spirit. But then you'll look at something like a Boris Vallejo drawing, and it looks like he started with a pose that he had somebody do, sketched that stiff pose out, and then rendered it all to the 9s. Right. And it looks over rendered, but it looks stiff and lifeless.
Yes. That brings me to another point. I've seen moderate to good artists in this field, particularly sequential art, comic books, that their figures might be well executed, but they're lifeless. They're flat. They don't move. A comic book, even who was it that said this? Sketch and Scotty said this. Even a person sitting still should have built-in potential motion into it. There should always be a sense of movement in every panel, even if it's just conversation. You can't just draw flat posed people all the time. Jim O'Reilly, good to see you, buddy. Thank you. Jim O'Reilly did the cover B for my campaign, and Jim,
I saw.
Jim is a badass.
Looks good.
Yeah, Jim's a badass, man. Just saying. I'll drop the link in the chat, Jim, if you want to pop in. Of course, if you don't want to pop in, don't.
Now, I'm not an expert on covers. I'm an expert on partying, as you can see right here in my title.
It's a party expert. Party expert. I'm an expert on getting shadow banned. Another question for you. This is from me, not from a student's perspective. So I've heard everything you've been willing to say about the buckler since I've known you. So here's my question. Why would anyone care about the buckler? What makes people care about him as a character?
Oh, because he's extraordinarily relatable. But he's relatable in the sense that people don't want to admit.
Well, elaborate.
Well, I'll tell you. Oh, I think you have somebody in the back room. But
just Pops. He can come in whenever he wants to.
Okay, good. Don't let him in here. I'm talking. All right, so
you can't stop me. What you mean? Don't let me in?
Oh, God. You told me that you had power here, Doc.
He's got the power. It's his channel.
You didn't tell me that you were a nobody.
I'm always a nobody.
Doc is my right hand. He does have power here, just not over me.
You have.
He's got power over you, though.
Now, you're sitting at the right hand of the Father, is what you're saying, Doc.
He's my dude. He's got my back. I got his. That's how that works.
So we're talking about that flatness of characters, and I can't remember whether it was either Liefeld or one of the other early Image guys, probably Liefeld. He could draw posed characters all day long, but the action was it was always so flat to me.
Stiff. It was stiff.
Yeah. And I don't need to see, a character holding a gun. Give me a worm's eye view looking up at him while he's shooting. Or
give me the spray. I like the spray.
Whatever it may be.
Something.
Put some life and some motion into everything.
All right. Are you familiar with anime? Doc?
Yeah.
Have you watched much anime?
Not much, but I've seen.
I'm
Like
left-handed.
as a kid, I watched all of Battle of the Planets and Star Warriors and that stuff. The Yamato.
Like what I would suggest, right, is go on to YouTube, and there's a cartoon, an anime cartoon called Kill la Kill, KILLLAKILL, Kill la Kill, and just look at a compilation of transformation and animation from Kill la Kill. This is some of the most dynamic shit you've ever seen in your life. Like
Nice.
you didn't even know shit like this was possible. You're watching it and you're like, the grin is ear to ear while you're watching. You're like, oh my god, this is so good, and it's corny shit, right? It's like almost like Sailor Moon style, where they go, moon, prism, magic, and they do a spin and they transform their costume.
Mhm.
Except in this one, except in this cartoon, the clothes are getting ripped off. She's butt naked. The things are getting strapped on. The breasts are jiggling as they're getting strapped on. And you see these big old guns and knives. Like she has this scissor sword that goes like slap, flap, and it comes at the viewer like this, right? As it comes out, and it's almost like the animation you see in like the 2D fighting games, right? Where it's they put the hold, like the basics of animation, the push and pull, right? But the snaps are just exaggerated to the extreme. And you're watching it, and it's a joy to watch. It's like a feast for the eyes. And
You mean like somebody actually put some thought into it?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. and you can actually translate that stuff into still panels.
Yeah, I used to say before I even understood what it was that made anime different from Western animation, it was always, man, why can't Thunder the Barbarian have shit like this in it? But
the thing is this: it can.
It exactly. It could. I always wanted to see that blending of East and West, And I really, in particular, I enjoyed Ghost in the Shell because it was intense, it was deep, and it's whatever. It was good. It was good for all those same reasons.
But when I'm talking about these shows like Kill la Kill or another show called Hunter x Hunter. Like these shows, like these little scenes, these action sequences are so in your face, and they do the same thing that they do with the regular anime, which is they don't do 24 frames per second, right? They'll do 18, 16 frames per second, but they'll jump past the action point and they'll get to the result, right? If a person comes here like this and goes and comes to a stop, you'll have the blur, the person coming to a stop, but then they'll do 11 tight frames of animation of the person's collar going, you know what I mean? As they come to that stop, and it looks fantastic,
Yes. And that was one of the things, by the way, as far as still art goes, both Mark Bagley and McFarlane were really good at indicating movement in all of their works. I didn't know the robot chick got naked, but I'll go back and look. PayPal, crazy fucker. McFarlane and Bagley could both really do motion. And Bagley was the one that said, if you're going to draw Spider-Man effectively, you got to break every bone in his body to give him those extreme poses that he used to do. And you look at those, and it's not a slight against the older artists like Romita and whoever that was doing Spider-Man. But there was a time when Spider-Man was just as big and bulky as Captain America. And, you'd see his feet up when he was swinging, but you didn't see all those extremes and that limber figure. So that's something I like to see people push for in their art. Let's see. Feast for the eyes. My eyes so hungry for a body. Okay. All right, Billy, you do you, brother. No judgment.
But the thing is this, right? You have to think about, which is why I started with the story you're trying to tell. Because another one of my favorite comic artists of all time, and one of my favorite runs he did, is a guy named Sam Keith. And he did a run called Batman's Secrets, which I thought was perfect because you remember the old Batman, they make the joke, right? He can't turn his head.
Yeah.
Real stiff, whatever. He did a couple of images of Batman, right? Where they're doing it basically like this.
Yeah.
looking up at the Batman, right? But the thing is, the way he drew him, because you know how Sam Keith draws, he'll draw flat planes, and then all of a sudden at the joint, he'll have 100,000 muscles that don't exist all in that one area.
Right.
So
right.
what happens is you'll see his hand clenched at the bottom of the page, but everything else is just statuesque and stoic all the way to the top, just a flat line. You don't even see the differentiation between the chin and the neck. It's just a straight line, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's telling the story of the rigidity of when the Joker is talking to Batman and trying to get him to crack. This guy's not cracking. He's a stone wall.
Exactly.
And he shows that he's telling the story through the image. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got to have that story in mind, the story you're trying to tell before you put pencil to page.
Does it serve the story? Should be. Look, that's just like in music. The guitar solo is useless unless it serves the song. Do the lyrics match the music? Does the music match the lyrics? You know, it's the same thing with a comic book. When you're telling a story, everything is in service to the story. Great pinups don't make a great story. They're just great pinups. That's all they are. They serve their purpose, but you got to do more than that. You know, you got to have the guy leaping off the page at you. You know, you got to be able to show the up angle, the down angle, and all. The thing I struggle the most with though is backgrounds, because I hate drawing man-made things. I hate it. I got to get better at it.
I love humanity and all the things that it makes. And
Yeah,
I'll draw the hell out of him. Now, Jonathan Rossignol brings up the third and last inspiration that I have for artwork, which I've told you before, which is John Crisfolucci, the creator of Ren and Stimpy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love this guy's work, mainly because he's such a hard-ass taskmaster. I heard this story about John Kay from one of his lead artists on the remake. He made a comeback a couple decades ago called Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon, where it was all the nasty adult humor that he wanted to do in the cartoon but couldn't.
Right.
But he was talking to one of the artists was talking telling a story about John Kay, where he would come over and rip the page up he was working on and say, you know, season 2, episode 13, we had an expression just like this. There's 100 million ways to show somebody being uncomfortable. Find a new one.
Yeah.
Because he was
That's how I've always done it. Exactly. That's the problem.
Get the hell out of here.
And you know, that's something I try to think about too in every composition is, the way to do this particular panel is X. All right, but what else is there? What other way can I tell that story?
How can we make it look better?
Not just better, but intriguing. Pull the audience in, serve the story. There's a fuck ton of exposition in some books, and when that's going on, there might not be a lot of action. So you've really got to create a dynamism to the image. There needs to be something happening in the image that pulls you into it. You know,
like if you think to yourself, if you close your mind, not close your mind, but close your eyes and use your mind's eye and think to yourself, what is a person when somebody says, can you draw him looking angry? Right now, angry is an expression you do a lot in comics. So when you close your eyes, you have a Rolodex of angry faces.
Yep.
Oh, you could be angry this way, that way, this way. But when somebody says this person's in love, right?
Right.
There's only like one pose that comes, one expression that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're like, well, how can I improve that? How can I change that? Because there's a whole bunch of different emotions that you run through when you're in love, right? So let's work it out. Let's see if we could do different expressions, right? So you'll draw a person again with the big doughy heart eyes, right? Or you'll draw a person doing this number with the teeth like or something like that, or there's 100,000 different expressions, and there's 100,000 different angles and points of view.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Change that shit up. And that's the thing that kills me when I'm watching, or not when I'm watching, but when I'm viewing a lot of people's campaigns, is that they're just not they're not trying something different.
Right.
Like, dude, like here's my camera angle right here, right? If I'm gonna say, somebody says, hey, draw a guy saying goodbye, right? He's at a bus station and I'm going like this. Here's me and I'm like this.
Yep.
He's saying goodbye. But what if I change that, right? What if I change the angle to this and I'm like this?
Exactly.
This is better, right?
Yep.
What if I don't do that? What if I tilt my arm a little bit more? What if I put my hand further out? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
What if I put my hand limp, like I'm saying goodbye, but I don't really want to let you go?
Yeah.
Something different, something more dynamic.
And don't be afraid. This was something that I learned. I wasn't taught this one. Don't be afraid to go to the extremes to get what you're after. For example, if you want to show someone that's just wowed because somebody just walked in the room, don't be afraid to go look at a Bugs Bunny cartoon when the wolf howls and bugs out, the way they exaggerate everything to go, okay, that's the mood I want to capture. No, I'm not going to draw a big wolf's head. No, but that's the mood you're after. That's the angle you might want to use. Yeah, right there. Boom. The Wolfie cartoon. And yes, your pencils are the camera. Yeah, exactly.
So I want to show you a piece right now.
Okay.
This is a piece that I used for reference. I'm basically just aping it, right? Because I love this pose. I use this pose a lot.
Okay.
And it's from a Sabretooth comic book by Teixeira, Mark Teixeira, and it's the scene where he comes out of the car and he's surrounded by ninjas, right? And this is the pose I wanted to use for the Buckler when he breaks into this room and he's surrounded by horrors. All right, so let me share my entire screen, and I'll show you what I'm doing, how I'm stretching the Buckler out to make him just more dynamic. Okay, so here's the scene. This is the Teixeira drawing here. Surrounded by ninjas, double page spread. It's fucking awesome. I love it. So this is what I did for the Buckler, right? For his cartoony pose.
Yeah.
Because this is what I want. Like this is the expression, because he's number one, he's all hopped up on cocaine, right?
Right.
And number two, he's breaking into this place because he wants sweet ass revenge. He wants some sweet revenge for what they did to his lackey. So he's coming in and he's hot. He's ready to just start snatching heads and putting them through walls.
But
I wanted to.
But it's a room full of whores.
Yes.
There's nobody there. There's nobody there to kill yet.
I'm sorry. Maybe you misunderstood me. Yes, there is. There's a room full of whores, and he's going to kill a great deal of them.
What is
I mean, they're all part of the party. They all had the opportunity to stop what was going on. They didn't. Everybody in that room is liable. The Johns and the
So
hookers.
they're all guilty. Yep. Yeah. And that's actually true. That's what a buckler is. It's just a little fencing shield.
Yeah, it's about yay big.
Yeah, it's
I think it's on average about 10 inches in diameter.
Yeah,
across.
Yeah, it's basically the size of a tea saucer.
I actually made the buckler a little bit bigger on his hand than it should have been, because the size that he is, it should barely even be popping out of the sides of his big old fist. But, yeah, that's the thing. Like
Yep.
He's gonna kill them all, Doc. Except for George. You see, what happened is in the very first book I did, The Buckler Descent, there's a guy named George that lives in Winnipeg, and he's a big fan of the Buckler. This is him in the bottom where he says, "Hey, looking good there, Buckler." He's in the window. He says, he's like, "Yeah, thanks, George."
So George gets a pass.
George gets a pass. He's not going to get murdered, but everybody else, so they're all fair game.
And if I were telling somebody about the Buckler, and I was going to give them an analogy, if you like this, you'll like the Buckler. What would you most closely relate it to?
Well, here's the thing. You asked me a question earlier that I want to get back to before I answer that one. Is that okay? Yeah. You asked me why people
should care
about the Buckler. It's because the Buckler is a very, very, I wouldn't say tight, but it's a very focused, introspective on a man's desire to hurt and kill and do what he wants. I was talking to this guy named Captain Finity, and he had somebody going through his neighborhood wearing an actual ski mask, casing houses, right? So his son comes in and tells him, "Hey, we're going to go on patrol." right? You know, you grab a stick and you go walk around your neighborhood and make sure nobody's breaking into houses. There's a couple of abandoned houses on the street. So you go. And then we were talking about this phenomenon of when you no longer have a reason to not take action.
Right.
Like when you're all out of options. And it immediately brought me to the Sin City. Like, this is the bad days, the old days, the all or nothing days. It's blood for blood by the gallon, baby. You know, it's like, you know, you go to your neighbor's house. You say, hey, can you keep the music down? Can you stop doing donuts on the corner there? My kids are playing. Can you stop doing this? And you tell them 3-4 times and they're not listening. And you call the police and the police don't want to come. So now you're all out of options, right?
Right.
Now it's time to be a man of action.
Yep.
Okay.
And then
it's time to put something in that intersection that's going to pop some tires and shit.
Exactly. You go and you get your 2x4 to nails and slide it right under his car.
Yeah,
you know?
There you go,
But,
man.
or do something. But the thing is this, you no longer have the option because you've exhausted the options to be nice.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you know, nobody wants to get into an altercation with their neighbor. Everybody gets in there. Even as a grown man, you could be the biggest, toughest grown man in the world. You still get nervous having to go and get into a possible physical altercation with somebody. You're nervous. But then at that point where you don't have any more options, the nervousness goes away.
Resolve.
And it's replaced with anticipation and glee
And
resolve.
Yeah.
The warrior's courage, where you ain't got no more. You ain't got no choices no more. You either pick up that gun and run for that door, or you're gonna die here, buddy.
Yeah.
So I'm fucking doing it. That's where the buckler's at in his head.
He lives in that zone.
He lives in that zone perpetually.
So
Because
let me break
he was
that down.
done so wrong, and he tried for so long to get back to where in society's good graces, where you know what, I'm not as bad as you're saying I am. I do good things here, and everybody's like, "You're a piece of shit, dude." And so he's like, "You know what? I really just want what I want, and if that goes against how you say I should go about getting it, well, that's on you, because I tried it your way, and now I'm doing things my way."
So let me.
These things are what I consider to be touchstones of the human condition.
Well, that's where I'm going with this. Let's break
Okay.
that down into Freudian. And as a counselor, I was not Freudian, but I'm aware of the id, the ego, and the superego. So the buckler is a raw id without a superego. Superego is the cop part of your brain that says you should do this, you should not do this. The id goes, I'm thirsty, I want that water. And the superego goes, you can't drink out of that water, that's a public fountain. And the ego is the one that acts on it. Okay, we'll pass on that. We'll go over here to the store and we'll get some water. So in the buckler's case, it's just a raw id. I want what I want. The superego has been put to sleep. I'm not being regulated by societal norms, by rules, by any of that stuff. It's just the unfettered, raw impulse.
Right. Now, he has that influence in his life, and that influence is Moose.
Mm-hmm.
His henchman, his partner, Moose. Moose is the one that he's the even keel one. He's a criminal, mind you.
Right.
And the buckler and him parted ways when they were in their teens. Shut up, Michael T. Like I always say, fuck that shit. So Michael T is a piece of dirt, and here's why. Number one. No. The buckler loves to do these things. He wants to get what he wants and get it his way. But Moose, who was no longer his friend because Moose decided to pursue a life of crime, and the buckler wanted to be a hero, right? They parted ways. But then when the buckler comes back and the buckler is full tilt villain, Moose all of a sudden is back in his life.
Right.
It's almost like a homecoming for him, right?
Right.
Like we always knew this was the way you really wanted to go. You were just you were faking the funk.
Yeah.
But now you're home. And it helps him in the sense where the buckler wants to do what he wants to do all the time.
Right.
But Moose is the one basically getting him to be able to continue to have a life and not go basically 5 stars in GTA. Okay? The Moose keeps him at 1 star.
Yeah.
because the buckler immediately wants to go to 5 stars and start fighting the military.
Yeah. So Moose is like his superego. He's like, yeah, I see that you want to do this, boss, but maybe it would be better if we did this or did it this way.
Right.
And
because the buckler, he's not
my superego.
Yeah, he doesn't want that much. You don't want that much heat, boss.
Right. So because of that, there's a good balance there. And the thing is, because of that, Moose is the only person the buckler will realistically listen to.
Right.
Like at the end of the book, the first book, I don't know if you've read it or not, but I kind of give a hint of that because he has 2 henchmen, Bull and Moose. Moose is kind of like his best bud. Bull is like a hired gun, ex-military, didn't really do anything in the military. He was a cook, but he decided to try to become a soldier of fortune. That didn't work out. So the buckler hired him to be personal security. So that's what he is. And as Moose comes in with the fish, because they're hiding out, right? They're hiding out after the big battle at the end of the buckler book. They're hiding out in the woods. And Moose comes back with the fish for dinner. And the buckler's been recuperating. He's been basically passed out in a coma for a good solid 2 weeks. And he finally woke up. And Bull is sitting there all dejected, right? With his gun out. And he's like, what's going on? He's like, he's awake, but he don't want to talk to me. Apparently, he just wants to talk to you.
Right. Exactly.
So he has to go in and say, what's going on, boss? Tell me what's happening. How you feeling? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
I love that. I love the kind of dynamic that they have as bros, as friends, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically closer than your family because you can tell things to your bros and your bros will help you out with stuff that you wouldn't want your wife knowing or have her helping you out with.
Exactly right. Exactly. And it's a story like that. There has to be a Moose because without it, it would be a nonstop fight.
Right.
It would be Buckler constantly going after every impulse that he has, that he wants. Now, you said that he's doing this rage attack in Tussle because they did something to one of his lackeys. Mm-hmm. So he does have a sense of loyalty.
Oh, fierce
Loyalty. What other traits would you call the positive ones that he's got?
Well, he's extraordinarily protective.
Okay.
Number one of his actual family. Mm-hmm. Like the only time you see the buckler really let loose and go full bore is when somebody is threatening his people or his family, his immediate blood family. That's when you see him just completely snap and lose it.
So here's a question I've got to ask. The underworld that exists everywhere, whether you know it or not, people, it does. What do they think about the buckler? What do the mob bosses in town think? It's like, don't fuck with that guy, man. The buckler will come after your ass if you fuck with him.
Right. He's basically the madcap, right? He's the new hot-blooded person in town. You don't want to really, you have to deal with him. But because of the reputation he has already out there, that he's not somebody that can easily be handled. So At this point, there's really only one big in the story underground mob boss. His name is Xylo, and he runs Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. And he's in the first book, he's kind of tertiarily trying to deal with the buckler through a subset of his group called the Gateway 4, but he's not directly getting involved.
Right.
In the second longer book that focuses on the buckler, which is Segregation, he's going to be heavy in that because it's going to be a one-on-one. Because the buckler is so powerful now. They thought that he was just kind of the strength of 3 men, right? That's who he is. But after the events of the bridge, and they saw that there's some sort of supernatural element where the buckler was shown to be extraordinarily powerful, this is a big deal. And now the people are actually backpedaling. They're on their heels. And we need to figure out how to get back ahead of this because we didn't address this immediately. And now it's ahead of us. So when they come to the meeting in the beginning of the book, the beginning of the book starts with the buckler and Moose walking out of the meeting with Xylo and his henchmen, and the other crime boss, right? And they try to take him out right there and then in the alley.
Yeah, that's the scene you showed me
with the rain and the bus and the 50 cal on top of the bus and all that. Yeah. So that's when they're coming out of the meeting with the other, mob bosses, whatever. So the Buckler is formidable on his own. But again, if you pop him in the head with a 30-30, he might not come back from that. He's not invincible, Mm-hmm. So a sniper with a good disposition and a nice trigger could probably take the Buckler out.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons I put it in Canada, because everybody up there is cowards and nobody would do that.
And Dillard insults a whole country. So, the mob is kind of trying to figure out how to get a handle on this guy. And at first, he's an inconvenience, and then he's a nuisance, and then he's a rival.
No. At first, he's an inconvenience, and he jumps from inconvenience to being a rival that's ahead of them. Gotcha.
Okay. And now what the fuck do we do?
Now it's like, no, now we got to come back. We need conscriptions from the north. That's what we need.
You need
the north. What, the North Pole? Santa's giving the orders.
you got to kind of think like in the Vlad Outpost. It's at this point that they would go and hire an assassin, and an assassin would simply say, is it possible to blah 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 blah. And an assassin's reply in that series in that world is anybody can be killed. How much money you got? How much time you willing to give me?
So. Thinking that through, because that's logical, right? This is what happens. In the beginning of the book, right, you see him in the alley, and then what do you see come out of the shadows and pull out a Schofield 45 on the Buckler? An assassin, but it's an assassin from his past, from Mexico, when he was down in Brownsville. That's who they brought up. And they brought up an assassin that has a personal vendetta against the Buckler. Okay? So it's all tied in together. Okay.
It's all connected. I got to get me some Buckler. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't gotten any yet. Where can people get the Buckler?
You can't. You can get it when I have my new campaign out. My campaigns are no longer going to be on Indiegogo nor Kickstarter. They're going to be on Fund My Comic exclusively.
Just want to point out how expert that segue was by your host here. Head it over.
He set it up and then he knocked it over because he's a blustering idiot.
Set it up and then cut it off. Did you catch that?
Head it over to Fund My Comic, boys and girls, which is, by the way, where I will be going as soon as Pariah gets funded and we fulfill everything's moving to Fund My Comic. I don't want to do business with people that hate me. It's that simple.
Exactly, Michael T. Michael T has it. Can you highlight that comment?
I can.
The Buckler can only be stopped by the bullets of 3 guns.
Now,
that's what I'm saying. He's a man. He has the strength of 3 men. He has the constitution of 3 men. Think about D&D, right? The strength, speed, agility, constitution. He can eat a rotten tomato and not get sick because he has the belly of 3 men, right? But if you get a gun that's 3 times as powerful as it would take to kill a normal human man, that would kill the Buckler.
You said this the other night, and I was thinking about it after you said it. Does he have the intellect of 3 men?
Yeah.
Then why would he need Moose?
He still needs Moose because he has the intellect, but he also has the testosterone of 3 men.
Exactly right. Because
insecurities of 3 men, all that shit, right?
He got the insecurities of 3 men.
he's that, Moose has got to be that super ego to him. Hey, boss, look,
it all scales. You see, even though he has like the constitution and the brains and the smarts and the resolve of 3 men, he also has the impulse, the short temper of 3 men as well.
Right. He's a 3 times shorter temper than the average man. Yep. And that's the dynamic of the storytelling. Dillard, you've been talking a lot about storytelling on your channel lately, which I enjoy. The beauty of that storytelling is there has to be a check on him, or it would just be a book filled with chaos. And that's where a character like Moose is so important. But then you've got to, as a writer, create a reason why would the Buckler listen to the Moose in the first place, because the id doesn't want to listen to the superhero, but it has to, because they need each other. So you got to create that dynamic. And I think that's really top-notch storytelling.
Because the thing is, think of it like this. You have a close friend, Doc?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you have a close friend, a good guy friend, a buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You would tell this guy most everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't tell him everything.
Right.
Right? So that's what Moose is to the Buckler. He's there and he's told him, this is my plan. I need to get my wife back. I need my daughter back. I need my family back.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not telling him everything.
Right.
He's not telling him all of it. But Moose says, you know what? That's good enough for me. And I'm here to help you out. And I'm going to help you out in the ways that I can help you out. And you gotta let me help you. You gotta help me help you.
Yeah.
But again, he's not his boss. He's not.
Right.
He doesn't not telling him everything. There are some things the Buckler will go and do without Moose.
Mm-hmm.
And Moose just has to, because he's his friend, be there enough for him to help him pick up the pieces when they do fall. And he does do something that he doesn't completely understand.
Right. And
he's a good enough friend to do that.
That speaks to the reason of why the Buckler needs Moose. He knows what I want and he helps me get my goal. He's there to help me. So if he's on my side and if he's facilitating, then I've got to listen to him because that's the cost of the interactional friendship.
Mm-hmm. Like it gets strained in that second book, right? Not the second, the third book. It gets strained because the Buckler has this existential crisis where he goes into the afterlife and he sees what he thinks is his father, but he's talking to himself, right, in his own mind. And he wants to talk to his dad again. And when he wakes up in the, he recovers, he says, what the fuck happened? Right. And Moose is driving and he's like, oh, fuck, you're alive. Right. Because he has him he threw his corpse in the back of the car to drive out of there. And he says, oh, thank God you're alive. Right. And then the Buckler says, watch out, buddy. Throws his buddy out the car so that he could then take control of the vehicle and turn into a pylon, jump and do a header right into a pylon under a bridge and immediately die and go back into the spirit world.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got Moose in the alleyway there, all fucking crumpled up and broken bones because the Buckler just threw him out of a car going 70 miles an hour. And he has to deal with that. But they deal with it in a very manly way.
Think about the intensity of the unfettered man that wants what he wants so badly that to get what he wants, he has to damn near kill himself. And he doesn't even hesitate to do it.
Oh, no.
But in that
he
one
needs
moment,
that.
Yeah.
Remember that movie Rocky where he says, I got some stuff here?
Yeah.
He got some stuff in his basement that he has to work out? He needs to work this stuff out before he can move on.
Yeah. And he's willing to pay the price for it. But at the same time, that knee-jerk reaction was there. I got to protect my buddy, so I'll get him out of here before I do this. That one little passage tells a story bigger than the story. And that's what I mean when I say good storytelling, layer upon layer upon layer. What is a character's motivation? How strong is the motivation? Does the motivation overcome other desires and other motivations? So, and
that's what you have to think about when you're constructing this page. When you're making this page, do I show, as the Buckler is chucking Moose out the fucking window or out the car door, do I show the reaction on Moose's face? Do I show the singularity of drive and thought on the Buckler's face? Do I show that? Does that need to be shown? What angle do I do it from? Do I just do a comical whoop guy falling out of the car? No, it's not that kind of story. Right? Think about the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
This is a betrayal.
Yes.
Right?
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you. You're the writer, you're the artist on the Buckler. It's a passionate project. I get that. I'm the writer and artist on Pariah. And I have said this of myself. I frequently, as the writer, create shit for myself that's fucking hard as hell to draw. Do you ever, as a writer, do you create things for yourself? You go, fuck, man, there's an easier way to do this, but no, this is the way I got to do it.
Oh, absolutely. There's countless. If you see it in your head and this is the way to do it, that's the way to do it. If you do it any other way, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. You're cutting corners. You're chinsing out on the reader. Your
Yes.
pencil, or in my case, my stylus, is my budget
Yes.
for my movie, for my blockbuster movie. This is my budget. My time is my budget, right?
Mhm.
I can make anything happen. I can show worlds colliding and universes opening up. I can show people getting turned inside out. You know what I mean? I can do whatever I want with this.
Right.
And if that's the story, then that's the story I have to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to show you. If I don't do that, I'm basically making a low budget movie. Why would anybody want to pay $25 plus shipping for a low budget movie? Why would you go to a theater to watch Electric Shark?
Does your artist self and your writer self ever get into squalls?
No. I occasionally I'll say, fuck, I can't believe I have to draw all this. But no, it's always, that's what it is. You have to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm the story.
I'm in the same place that this has to happen for the story. So man up, just fucking draw it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that the penciler part of me goes, "Oh boy, this is going to be fun." No, sometimes it's work. It's a job. You got to do it.
No, getting the layouts done, that's fun.
Yeah.
Drawing, this is how it's going to work, and this is how I want his eyes to be. I want his eyes to be full of like, why me, right? As he's falling out of the car. That's what I want. When I have those pencils and that sketch down, I'm smiling.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now it's time to render. Now I sit down and put on my sunglasses and I go, okay.
Yeah. The mechanical.
The rest is just mechanical, you know?
The very mechanical part. And that, you know, when I'm teaching art, John, that's what I tell my students, that art starts in your mind and your eyes and moves down the arm. In painting, you know, you start with the big motions and then to the elbow, to the wrist, and then lastly to the fingertips. Not quite that way with what we do here, but it still starts in the mind and the eye. How do you see things? And you got to get it from here to here, but it must be born here. And this must be true to this. You got to be true to that vision.
Mm-hmm. Because I always have this conversation and people like to harp on me, right? Like, oh, writers are more important than artists and artists are more important than writers and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I am always of the opinion and always will be of opinion that the writer artist is superior to all other forms. I don't care how many stories you've written, or if you're Tom King, or if you're Stan Lee, or if you're Kirby, or if you're Claremont. The writer artist are the books that are like, wow. When you have the person that has the story in their head and they're the person putting forth the vision of their own story. And when it's done competently and well, they're the best stories out there.
That's the caveat. If you do it well.
Yeah, I mean, if you do it poorly, then fucking go load a truck or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the Jim Shore thing, man. Tell good stories and tell them well.
Tell good stories and tell them well, or go fucking unload that truck at the dock.
Yeah. Now, that's not to speak discouragement toward people that aren't where they need to be yet.
I'm meaning to speak discouragement. Absolutely.
I'm not. Keep pushing. Push yourself. Always. Fuck you, John. Never stop pushing yourself. The quick and easy is just that. It's quick and easy, and that's what
if you're not trying to be the best there is, what the fuck are you doing in this business?
Yeah, I had somebody ask me early on when I first popped up.
Hey, if you're loading trucks and you're not trying to be the best there is, then what are you doing in that business?
I know. Go back to your mama's house and go play Call of Duty in the basement.
Somebody early on asked me, you know, just because I didn't have anything.
She'll make you the sandwiches, the kind you like.
Other than my paintings, I didn't have anything to show anybody, and they're like, "Well, are you a good artist?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a damn good artist." And somebody said, "Well, that's kind of cocky, isn't it?" I said, "Well, what kind of idiot you got to be to ask somebody to back a book and go, well, I'm not really that good." No, of course, you know, you've got to know the saying I use. It's a sorry dog that won't wag its own tail. You know, you got to tell people, of course I'm good. You want to see my art. You want to read my story. Michael T says, "Got to head to work and unload a truck. Catch you guys later."
Be the best there is at it, Mike.
Yep, whatever it is.
Yeah, try to get 2 trucks done today, lazy ass.
Even Louis Grizzard unloaded trucks. Just saying.
Who?
Louis Grizzard.
I don't know who that is.
Grab his books if you ever want to laugh. He was
I got a
called,
book yesterday. I got a
he was
book
called
from.
Mark Twain of the 20th century.
I got this book in the mail from a viewer. Darren Wagner sent me a book.
D-Wag.
No, the other one. Darren Wagner, not Darren Wagoner.
Oh, okay.
D-Wag.
Got
Darren
you.
Wagner. He sent me this book by Stephen King called The Cycle of the Werewolf.
Mhm.
But it's illustrated by
Bernie
Bernie
Wrightson. Right on.
because he knows that's kind of the direction I'm going with my hatching and stuff like that. So he's wanted me to get some inspiration. Check it out.
Yeah, that's badass. Badass.
So,
And look how simple that is, but the incredible storytelling that's already there.
look at this night, right?
Yeah.
You get look at that sky. You know the sky he's talking about.
Yep.
You know exactly this kind of sky he's talking about. Doesn't
Yep.
have to be perfect.
I want to put him up there. Yeah, there you go. Look at that.
And there's
Yeah.
another scene here where it has the real famous one. It's where it has the rolling skies with the big clouds over the plains.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's fantastic. Let me find it real quick for you. Let me
You
find
see
it for you so
Michael
you
T.
can enjoy it.
Michael T.
You
said,
can enjoy this as well.
they send us one truck, but he unloads it with the speed of 3. Fuck yeah.
Look at that.
That's badass. Badass. And that's line work, boys and girls. That's not paint. Painting clouds is easy. Drawing them is a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Here to tell you. Because skies are one of my speciality in painting. I teach classes on it. But then if you got to draw it, fuck, it's a nightmare.
That's easy. Just get it done.
Well, everything is just shapes. That's all it is. It's just shapes.
That's right.
Draw the next shape. Draw the next shape.
Vagaries, Mr. Anderson. Vagaries of perception.
All right, boys and girls. I'm going to wrap it up here because it's time to go eat. Thank you, Dillard, for coming out and sharing some buckler and some wisdom with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Mr. Blalock. And I
Oh,
look forward to dealing with you or having dealings with you once you leave Indiegogo and Kickstarter, because I don't fuck with people who use Indiegogo and Kickstarter.
Well, over here behind me, I don't know if you can see, right above my foot, there's a little pile. That's the first of 12.
I refuse to look at it because I'm so tired of people saying, "Look at my thumb." Gee,
This,
you're dumb.
this is the first of 12 pages that are going directly over to fund my comic because I don't want to wait until Pariah's finished over on Indiegogo. I want to go ahead and get in over there. So I got a little 12-pager I'm going to do. I'm going to launch it over there, and it's a kind of a pocket scene that fits into the Pariah story that otherwise would have been left out. So there we go.
Well, you hit me up backstage and we'll go over. We'll compare our, because I'm also doing a 12-page story. We'll
Are
compare
you?
our 12-page stories. Like I told you, when the story is there and you have more story being told that's on the page, 12-page comics is where it's at.
Always, always. All right, chat. With that, we're going to bounce on out of here. Pops, thanks for coming out. Chat. Peace.
I hope you find those fingers for your gloves soon, Pop.